Hey guys. Today I bring you a stunning story of a near-death experience that will challenge everything you believe. Imagine being pushed to the edge between life and death and, in that moment, receiving a shocking vision about the future of humanity, starting in August 2024. This is the journey of Asher Caldwell, a man who has never believed in anything other than the he could see, until his life changed forever. Before we start, leave us in the comments from which city you're watching us from, and of course don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details of this incredible revelation. Let's discover what's to come together. My name is Asher Caldwell, and until a few months ago I was the kind of guy you'd call down to earth. You know those people who only believe in what they can see, touch, or scientifically prove? Well, that was me. I was born and raised in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's an incredible city, you know, surrounded by majestic mountains and a breathtaking night sky. But to me, those things were just, well, things. Natural phenomena that science could explain. I graduated in software engineering and built a solid career in the field. My life revolved around codes, algorithms, and logic. If it couldn't be programmed or calculated, for me, it wasn't real. I was that guy in the office who always said, "Show me the data," before believing anything. My worldview was simple and direct. We are born, we live, we die. End of story. No spirituality, no afterlife, no mystical experiences. All of this was, in my opinion, just people's imagination or, at most, tricks of the mind. I led a very ordinary life, you know? I would wake up early, go to work, come home, watch a series, sleep, and repeat everything the next day. On the weekends, I would sometimes go out with friends or go for a walk on the trails near the city. Nothing extraordinary, and I liked it that way. Predictability gave me security. Religion? Well, I considered myself an agnostic. It wasn't that I was against it, I just didn't care much about it. If someone asked me about God or something, I'd probably shrug and say something like, if it exists, great. If it doesn't exist, that's fine too. It wasn't a subject that occupied my thoughts. I had plans, you know? Very earthly plans. I wanted to move up the career ladder, maybe start my own technology company one day. I thought about buying a bigger house, traveling more, the normal things most people want. The future for me was something I could plan and control, or at least that's what I thought. But that all changed last winter. And when I say it changed, I'm not talking about a small change. It was as if the entire universe had turned upside down, shaken my entire reality, and introduced me to a world I had no idea existed. It all started with an illness that seemed common at first but ended up taking me on a journey that challenged everything I believed I knew about life, death, and what comes after. What I'm going to tell you now may seem crazy. Believe me, I understand if you doubt it. Old Asher would definitely doubt it. But I can say, looking into your eyes, that every word is the purest truth I have ever experienced. This is the story of my near-death experience, a journey that changed not just my life, but my very essence. It all started so banally that, looking back, it almost makes you want to laugh. It was December last year, and the winter in Flagstaff was particularly harsh. I had caught what seemed like just a cold. You know how it is, a runny nose, a scratchy throat, that annoying but common thing. At first I didn't think much of it. I continued working, taking a cup of tea here, an aspirin there. After all, who stops everything because of a cold, right? But in a matter of days, things got serious, and when I say serious, I'm talking about something I've never experienced before. It started with a dry cough that wouldn't go away. Then came a fever that went up and down like a roller coaster. I felt exhausted all the time, like I'd run a marathon just getting out of bed. I remember that one Wednesday. Funny how some details stick with us. I was at work, trying to concentrate on a line of code that didn't make sense. Suddenly, I felt like someone had placed a huge weight on my chest. Breathing became difficult, increasingly difficult. I got up thinking maybe it was just anxiety or something, but things only got worse. My colleagues realized something was wrong. I still see their worried faces today when I close my eyes. One of them, Mike, came up to me and asked if I was okay. I tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come out. The air just wouldn't get into my lungs. It was at that moment that panic took over me. Everything got a little confusing after that. I remember someone shouting to call an ambulance. I remember being placed on the ground, someone talking to me, telling me to stay calm. That help was on the way, but all I could think was, I can't breathe. I'm going to die here in the middle of the office looking at a plaster ceiling. When the paramedics arrived, I was already on the verge of unconsciousness. They worked quickly, putting an oxygen mask on my face, checking my vitals. I heard their voices, but it was as if they were very far away. They talked about low saturation and possible pneumonia, terms that I knew, but that at that moment seemed to belong to another world. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was the rocking of the ambulance and the sound of the siren. I was scared, more scared than I had ever been in my life. I always thought that when the time came to die, I would be prepared, that I would accept it as a natural part of life. But in that moment, with the darkness closing in around me, all I could think about was all the things I hadn't done, all the words unspoken, all the places I hadn't been. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything went dark. The sound of the siren disappeared. The fear, the pain in the chest, everything disappeared. It was as if someone had turned off a switch. I didn't know it at the time, but I was about to embark on the most extraordinary journey of my life, a journey that would take me beyond the limits of what I believed was possible. What happened next is something that, to this day, I have trouble putting into words. It's like trying to describe colors to someone who was born blind. But I will do my best to share this experience with you. One moment I was in the ambulance struggling to breathe, and the next, well, I wasn't there anymore. At least not in the way we are used to thinking. It was as if my consciousness had been ripped from my body. Suddenly I was floating above myself, looking down. I saw my body stretched out on the ambulance stretcher. The paramedics were all around me, working frantically. One of them was doing compressions on my chest, while another was preparing the defibrillator. It was surreal. I could see everything with incredible clarity, every detail, every expression on their faces. The strangest thing? I didn't feel afraid. There was no panic, there was no pain. It was as if all the worries and fears I carried were left behind along with my physical body. Instead, I felt a deep calm, a peace that I had never experienced before. As I watched the scene below, I started to notice other things. The colors seemed more vivid, more intense than anything I had ever seen before. The sounds were clear but at the same time distant, as if they were coming from far away. I tried to talk to the paramedics, tell them I was fine, that they didn't need to worry. But of course they couldn't hear me. I was just a silent observer, unable to interact with the physical world. It was at that moment that I noticed something even stranger. I could see through the walls of the ambulance. I saw the streets passing quickly. I saw other people on the sidewalks, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding inside the vehicle. As this was happening, I began to feel a sort of tug. It was as if something was calling to me, drawing me away from the scene in the ambulance. It wasn't a physical sensation, it was more like a calling to the soul. And honestly, a part of me wanted to go. I wanted to follow that calling, see where it would take me. But another part of me was reluctant. After all, that was me down there, my life, my dreams, my plans. Everything I knew was linked to that body on the stretcher. Leaving everything behind felt scary. As I struggled with this internal decision, something incredible happened. A light began to appear. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. It wasn't coming from any specific place. It seemed to be everywhere at once. It was bright, brighter than the sun, but it didn't hurt to look at it. In fact, it was comforting, welcoming. The light became more and more intense, and with it came a feeling of love so deep, so pure, that it is impossible to adequately describe. It was as if all the love in the universe was concentrated in that moment, in that light. And then, in the blink of an eye, the ambulance, my body, everything disappeared. I was being led toward the light, toward something that I knew, deep in my soul, would change everything. As the light enveloped me, I felt as if I was being transported to another plane of existence. The reality I knew, streets, buildings, people, everything dissolved. In its place, a space emerged that defies earthly description. It was infinite, with no visible boundaries, filled with a light that seemed to be alive, pulsing with an energy I had never experienced before. In this space, I began to perceive a presence. At first, it was just a feeling, like when you know someone is in the same room as you without even seeing them. But gradually this presence began to take shape. And then, I saw him. Jesus Christ was before me. Now I need to pause here and explain something. As I mentioned before, I was an agnostic. The idea of meeting Jesus or any other religious figure had never crossed my mind. If someone had told me something like this before, I probably would have laughed or at the very least raised a skeptical eyebrow. But in that moment, in that place, there was no doubt in my mind. I knew, with a certainty that transcended any logic or reason, that I was standing before Jesus. And the most surprising thing? I didn't feel scared or intimidated. On the contrary, I felt a peace and welcome that I had never experienced before. Jesus did not look like the images we see in paintings or movies. He was light, love, and wisdom personified. His presence radiated such deep, unconditional love that I felt completely enveloped by him. It was as if every atom of my being was being bathed in this love. He didn't speak, at least not in the way we're used to. Instead, there was direct, soul-to-soul communication. Ideas, emotions, and understandings flowed between us without the need for words. It was as if all the knowledge in the universe was within reach, if only I wanted to access it. Jesus showed me that I had crossed into a realm beyond physical reality, a place where earthly concerns lost their meaning. There, concepts such as time and space did not apply in the same way. Past, present, and future seemed to coexist. In that moment, I felt my ego, all my beliefs, fears, and limitations, dissolve. It was as if a blindfold had been removed from my eyes, and for the first time I could see the true nature of reality. I understood that we are much more than our physical bodies or our minds. We are spiritual beings, connected to something much greater. Jesus showed me that the fundamental purpose of existence is love. Not the romantic or familial love we know on earth, but a divine, eternal love that transcends anything we can imagine in our physical existence. He made me understand that each soul is a unique expression of this divine love, created to experience, grow, and ultimately return to Source. As this understanding expanded within me, I felt a deep connection to all of existence. It was as if I could feel every living thing in the universe, from the smallest particle to the largest galaxies. Everything was interconnected, part of a greater whole. Jesus then began to show me visions. They were not images in the traditional sense, but rather deep understandings that formed directly in my consciousness. I saw the creation of the universe, the evolution of life, the development of humanity. Everything was part of a greater cosmic plan, guided by this divine love. At that moment, all the doubts I had about the existence of God, about the purpose of life, about what happens after death, simply dissolved. It wasn't a question of believing or not believing. It was pure, direct, undeniable knowledge. It is difficult to express how long this meeting lasted. It could have been seconds or millennia. Time, as we know it, did not exist in that realm, but each moment was filled with revelations and realizations that fundamentally changed who I was. As my interaction with Jesus continued, the revelations deepened. He began to show me aspects of reality that I had never considered before. I saw that the universe is not just what we can see or measure with our instruments. There are layers and layers of existence, dimensions beyond our physical understanding. Jesus revealed to me that every decision we make, every action we take, has an impact that goes far beyond what we can realize. It's like a stone thrown into a lake, creating ripples that spread infinitely. Our choices not only affect our lives, but have repercussions on the entire fabric of reality. One of the most profound revelations was about the nature of time. I saw that the past, present, and future are not linear as we think. They coexist in an eternal now. What we call the future already exists in a certain way, just as the past continues to exist. Our lives are like an open book, where all the pages are available at the same time. Jesus showed me that the suffering and difficulties we face in earthly life have a greater purpose. These are not punishments but opportunities for growth and evolution of the soul. Every challenge we face is a chance to come closer to understanding divine love. I also saw that we are not alone on our journey. There are spiritual beings, which many call angels or guides, who are always with us, helping and guiding us even if we don't realize it. They respect our free will, but are always ready to help us when we ask. One particularly impactful revelation was about the nature of consciousness. Jesus showed me that our consciousness is not confined to our brains. In fact, our brains function more like receivers, tuning into our consciousness that exists on a more fundamental level of the universe. When we die, our consciousness doesn't go away. It simply changes tune. Another thing I learned was the power of our thoughts and emotions. I saw that they are not just abstract processes in our minds, but have an energetic reality of their own. Our thoughts and feelings literally shape the reality around us, in ways we don't always realize. Jesus also revealed to me that love, in its purest and most universal sense, is the most powerful force in the universe. It's what holds everything together. It's what drives evolution and growth. Every act of love, no matter how small, has a cosmic impact. One of the most surprising revelations was about the nature of creation. I saw that the universe is not something separate from us, something we observe from the outside. We are the universe experiencing itself. Each of us is a unique expression of the divine, exploring different aspects of existence. Finally, Jesus showed me that death, as we understand it, is an illusion. What we call death is just a transition, a change of state. Our essence, our true nature, is eternal and indestructible. Each of these revelations was like an explosion of understanding in my consciousness. It was pure, direct knowledge, without the need for interpretation or analysis. And with each revelation, I felt my perspective on life, on myself, and on the universe expand in ways I never imagined possible. It was then that Jesus began to show me visions of the future. And I must say, what I saw left me deeply impacted. They were vivid, almost tangible images of events yet to come. I saw a sequence of natural disasters on a scale we have never witnessed before. Devastating earthquakes shaking entire cities, tsunamis swallowing coastlines, volcanic eruptions obscuring the sky. It was as if the earth itself was in upheaval. But these were not just natural catastrophes. I saw conflicts on a global scale, wars that seemed to consume entire continents. I saw the emergence of powerful leaders, some inspiring hope, others bringing fear and destruction. The political landscape of the world seemed to be constantly changing, with alliances being formed and broken in the blink of an eye. The scariest thing was seeing how these changes affected ordinary people. Panicked crowds, families separated, entire communities displaced. It was a scene of chaos and suffering that made me want to look away. But Jesus gently encouraged me to keep watching. Then he showed me something that surprised me. Amid all this chaos, I saw people coming together. I saw acts of courage and compassion that moved me deeply. People risking their own lives to help strangers, communities coming together to overcome impossible odds. It was as if, in the face of the greatest challenges, humanity was rediscovering its ability to love and care for one another. Jesus told me that these events would begin to intensify from the end of August 2024. He did not give me specific dates for each event, but he made me understand that it would be the beginning of a period of great tribulation for humanity. Seeing my concern, Jesus assured me that these events, difficult as they were part of a greater plan. He showed me that they were like labor contractions, painful, but necessary for the birth of a new era. I saw that after this period of tribulation, a new consciousness would begin to emerge on earth. People would begin to awaken to their true spiritual nature. I saw a future where humanity lived in greater harmony with nature and each other. It was a vision of hope that contrasted sharply with the chaos that preceded it. Jesus made me understand that the purpose of these visions was not to scare me or make me fear the future. Instead, it was to prepare me and give me a sense of purpose. He told me I had a role to play in this coming future. I was amazed at the precision and clarity of these visions. They were not vague or symbolic, but detailed and vivid. It was as if I were actually there, witnessing these events firsthand. I confess that even now, months after this experience, I still get shaken when I think about these visions. It's knowledge that I carry with me, a responsibility that sometimes seems too heavy. But it also gives me a sense of purpose, an understanding that there is a greater plan at work, even when things seem to be in chaos. And here I am, in early August 2024, aware that soon, much of what I saw will begin to unfold. It's a strange feeling, knowing what's coming, and yet carrying on with everyday life. But that's what I have to do. After all, as Jesus showed me, every moment, every action, has its purpose in the grand plan of the universe. After showing me these visions of the future, Jesus turned to me with an intensity that made me shudder. He began to tell me about a mission, a purpose that I should fulfill when I returned to the physical world. Jesus explained to me that I had been chosen to be a channel of divine love in the world. I wasn't supposed to become some kind of religious leader or spiritual guru. None of that. The mission was much more subtle and, at the same time, much deeper. He told me that my role would be to help people reconnect with their own divine essence, especially in the face of the difficult times that lay ahead. I was to be a beacon of light amidst the approaching darkness. Jesus made me understand that this didn't mean I should go around preaching or trying to convert people. On the contrary, my mission was to live divine love in every aspect of my everyday life. Every interaction, every decision, every moment was to be an expression of this unconditional love that I had experienced. He showed me that people around me would feel this energy, this vibration of love, even if they couldn't explain what they were feeling. And this, in turn, would help them connect with their own inner light. Jesus also gave me specific instructions on how to prepare for the events to come. He told me to cultivate a daily meditation practice to stay centered and connected to divine source. He guided me to study sacred texts from various traditions, not to follow dogmas, but to recognize the universal truth that permeates them all. Additionally, Jesus instructed me to develop practical skills that could be useful in times of crisis. Things like first aid, survival techniques, knowledge about medicinal plants. He made me understand that these skills were not just for my own safety, but so that I could help others when the time came. An important part of my mission, Jesus told me, was to share the visions I had received. Not to cause panic or fear, but to help people prepare spiritually for what was to come. He guided me to talk about it in a calm and loving way, always emphasizing the hope and greater purpose behind these events. Jesus also spoke to me about the importance of forming connections with others who were awakening to this new consciousness. He told me that I would meet unexpected allies along the way, people who had also received similar callings. Finally, Jesus made me understand that this mission would not be easy. There would be moments of doubt, of fear, of tiredness. He showed me that I would face skepticism and even hostility from some people, but it assured me that I would never be alone, that he and other spiritual beings would always be with me, guiding me and strengthening me. When Jesus finished explaining the mission to me, I felt a mix of emotions. On the one hand, there was a sense of purpose, a certainty that my life had greater meaning. On the other hand, I felt the weight of responsibility. How could I, a simple software engineer, accomplish such an important task? But then, Jesus smiled at me. Not with his mouth, as he did not have a physical form as we understand it. But I felt your smile in my entire being. And in that smile, there was so much love, so much trust in me, that all my doubts disappeared. I knew that somehow I would be able to accomplish this mission. And so, with this certainty in my heart, I prepared to return to the physical world. to begin my journey as a channel of divine love. Returning to my body was as abrupt as leaving. In a moment, I was immersed in divine light talking to Jesus. The next, I felt a strong pull as if I was being sucked into a giant vortex. Suddenly, the light disappeared and I found myself plunged into darkness. For a brief moment, I felt panic. Where was the light? Where was Jesus? But then I started feeling physical sensations again. The first thing I noticed was the pain. My chest hurt, my throat was dry and irritated. Slowly, I started to hear sounds around me. Machine beeps, muffled voices, the soft sound of footsteps. I forced my eyes open and was blinded by the fluorescent light from the hospital ceiling. I blinked several times trying to focus my vision. I saw faces leaning over me. Doctors and nurses, I realized. They looked relieved and surprised at the same time. "Welcome back, Mr. Caldwell," one of the doctors said, smiling. "You gave us quite a scare." I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. A nurse gently lifted my head and gave me a drink of water. The cool liquid running down my throat was a strangely intense sensation after the ethereal experience I had just had. Little by little, I got my bearings. I was in an ICU. The doctors explained to me that I had suffered a cardiac arrest in the ambulance. For several minutes, I was clinically dead. They had managed to resuscitate me, but I had been in a coma for 3 days. As the doctors talked about my physical condition, I felt torn. A part of me was grateful to be alive, relieved to have survived, but another part longed for the peace and love he had experienced on the other side. The experience I had felt so real, so vivid. But now, back in the physical world, with the bright lights and blaring sounds of the hospital, it was starting to feel like a distant dream. Had it really happened? Or had it just been a hallucination caused by the lack of oxygen in my brain? But then, I remembered the mission Jesus had given me. The feeling of purpose, the unconditional love he had experienced. No, it couldn't have just been a dream. It was too real, too deep. In the days that followed, as I recovered in the hospital, I had a lot of time to reflect on my experience. Every detail was etched in my mind with crystal clarity. The revelations, the visions of the future, the mission, all of it was now part of who I was. The doctors and nurses noticed a change in me. They commented on how calm I seemed, at peace, despite the severity of my condition. Some patients in the same room even asked to talk to me, saying they felt better just being near me. When I was finally discharged 2 weeks later, I knew I was returning to a world that, in the eyes of others, had not changed. But for me, everything was different. Every color seemed more vibrant, every sound clearer. I saw beauty in things I would have previously ignored. A stranger's smile, a bird's song, the gleam of sunlight on tree leaves. I returned home to my daily routine, but nothing was the same as before. My work as a software engineer, which had once seemed so important, now seemed, well, not insignificant, but certainly not as crucial as I thought. I started to see my work as an opportunity to spread love and compassion, even if it was just being kinder to my colleagues or helping someone with a technical problem with more patience. I began to meditate every day, as Jesus had instructed me. In the beginning, it was difficult. My mind wandered, I was easily distracted, but over time, I got better. These moments of stillness became anchors in my day, helping me stay centered and connected to that source of love I had experienced. I also started studying books on spirituality, philosophy, comparative religion, sacred texts from various traditions. As Jesus had said, he was not looking for a new belief system to follow, but rather recognizing the universal truth that permeates all of these traditions. And of course, I began to prepare for the future I had seen. I took a first aid course. I started learning about medicinal plants. I bought a survival kit and kept it on hand at all times, not out of fear, but out of a sense of responsibility. If I could help even one person during the difficult times ahead, it would all be worth it. The months that followed my experience were of profound transformation. Externally, my life could look the same to anyone looking in from the outside. I still went to work every day, I still lived in the same apartment, I still went to the same places. But internally, I was a completely different person. I started to notice that people reacted differently to me. Co-workers who previously barely greeted me now stopped to chat. Strangers on the street smiled at me more often. It was as if they could feel, even if unconsciously, the energy of love that I was trying to emanate. I remember one day, about 2 months after my experience, when I met an elderly woman in the supermarket. She was having difficulty reaching an item on the top shelf. Normally, I would have helped and gone on my way. But this time, something made me stop and talk to her. I discovered that she lived alone and rarely had visitors. I ended up offering to help her with her shopping on a regular basis. This small act of kindness turned into a friendship that has enriched our lives in ways I never imagined. At work, I started to be more open and compassionate with my colleagues. When someone made a mistake, instead of getting frustrated, I saw it as an opportunity to help and teach. My superiors noticed this change and began giving me more leadership responsibilities, which allowed me to positively influence more people. As time went on, I began to talk more openly about my experience. Not for everyone, of course. I learned to be selective, sharing only with those who seemed open to listening. To my surprise, many people were more receptive than I expected. Some even shared their own spiritual experiences, things they had never told anyone for fear of being judged. I started to form a small group of people interested in spiritual discussions. It was nothing formal, just occasional meetings to talk about life, death, purpose, and love. These gatherings have become a safe space for people to explore issues they wouldn't normally discuss in their everyday lives. As we approached August 2024, I began to feel a growing sense of urgency. The visions Jesus showed me were always present in my mind. I knew that significant events were about to happen, and I felt a responsibility to prepare people as best I could. I started talking more openly about the changes that were coming. Not in an alarmist way, but emphasizing the importance of being spiritually prepared to face challenges. I encouraged people to cultivate compassion, to strengthen their community ties, to reconnect with their spiritual essence. Some listened to me with skepticism, others with curiosity. Some even called me crazy. But I didn't let myself be shaken. I knew that I was fulfilling the mission entrusted to me, and that every seed of love and awareness I planted could make a difference in the future. Now, in early August 2024, I feel like we are on the cusp of something monumental. I don't know exactly how the events I saw will unfold, but I feel a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. I know difficult times are coming, but I also know there is a greater purpose behind it all. My mission continues. Every day is an opportunity to spread more love, to help more people reconnect with their true nature. And as the world prepares for significant change, I stand firm in my purpose, confident in the divine love that I have experienced and that now guides every aspect of my life. Here I am, Asher Caldwell, sitting in my apartment in Flagstaff, Arizona, looking out the window at the mountains that have always been a part of my life. It's early August 2024, and the air is thick with a sense of anticipation that I can't fully explain. My life, over the last few months, has been an incredible journey of self-discovery and purpose. Since that near-death experience last winter, each day has been an opportunity to live the divine love I experienced, to be a conduit for something greater than myself. Looking back at the man I was before that experience, I can hardly believe the transformation. I was so skeptical, so closed to anything that couldn't be scientifically proven. Now, I see the world with completely different eyes. Not that I have abandoned science or logic, far from it, but I now understand that there is more to reality than what we can measure or quantify. The visions of the future that Jesus showed me are always present in my mind. I know that soon much of what I saw will begin to unfold. It's a strange feeling, carrying this knowledge while life around me continues as normal. I see people making plans for the future, discussing politics, worrying about their careers and relationships. unaware of the monumental changes that are about to happen. Sometimes I feel the weight of this responsibility. There are times when I wish I could just shout to the world, warn everyone about what's coming. But I know this is not the way. My mission is not to cause panic or fear, but rather to help people prepare spiritually, to connect with their true essence. I continue my daily routine. I go to work, meet friends, take care of my home. But every interaction, every moment, is imbued with a greater purpose. I try to be a living example of the unconditional love I have experienced. Sometimes it's difficult, especially when I face skepticism or rejection. But then I remember that moment with Jesus, that infinite love, and I find the strength to continue. As I prepare for the events to come, I feel a mix of emotions. There is apprehension, of course. The visions I saw were not easy to watch, and I know many people will suffer. But there is also hope. Hope because I saw that after the tribulation period, a new consciousness will begin to emerge. Hope because I know that no matter how difficult the times lie ahead, there is a greater purpose at work. I don't know exactly how my role will develop in the coming months and years, but I'm ready to be a beacon of light in the midst of darkness, ready to offer comfort and guidance to those who seek it, ready to fully live the mission entrusted to me. As the sun sets over the mountains of Flagstaff, I feel a deep peace. I know that no matter what happens, the love I experienced, the love that is the essence of all that is, will prevail. And in that knowledge, I find strength to face whatever the future brings. So, what did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to be notified with each new video. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.